Hey, welcome back. I was thinking the other day about a moment that probably sounds familiar. Staring at a blinking cursor on a screen, watching the seconds tick by on the clock in the corner, feeling this low-grade panic because I have a meeting in 7 minutes, and I need to finish this thought, and the day is just slipping. That pressure, that feeling that time is a resource we're constantly running out of. But here's what hit me. That very feeling, that entire structure of a life measured in minutes and hours, is a human invention. And not just any invention, perhaps the most profound one in history. Because before we could build cities, or launch rockets, or schedule a podcast, we first had to invent time itself. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is the Curiosity Compendium. And today, we're going to unwind the gears of history to explore a simple, staggering idea, the Clockwork universe. How timekeeping invented the future. For most of human existence, time was a rhythm, not a ruler. It was the sun's arc, the moon's cycle, the slow turn of the seasons. You woke with the light, worked while it lasted, and rested when it was dark. Life was event-based, not schedule-based. The first great fracture in that natural rhythm came from an unlikely place: medieval monasteries. These were communities of prayer, and their sacred rites needed to be observed at specific intervals 7 times a day. The divine office. But how do you wake 100 monks for prayers at 2 a.m. when there's no sun to guide you? Necessity, as it so often does, mothered invention. They began using water clocks, sundials, and candle clocks, but the real breakthrough was mechanical. In the 1300s, the first weight-driven mechanical clocks began to appear in European monastery towers, their bells ringing out to regiment the day into periods of prayer and work. This was the seed. Timekeeping moved from observing a natural phenomenon to imposing a human order upon it. The clock didn't follow the day began to follow the clock. And once that clock escaped the monastery tower and moved into the town square, everything changed. Now, the bell wasn't just for monks, it was for everyone. It told the merchant when to open his stall, the laborer when to start his shift, the magistrate when court was in session. For the first time, an entire community could synchronize their activities with precision. Time became a public utility, and with it came a new mental model. Time as a universal, measurable, and divisible commodity. Think about the language we inherited from this era. Working hours, wasting time, spending your time wisely. We talk about time as if it's money, because in the emerging capitalist markets of medieval Europe, that's exactly what it became. The clock enabled the coordination necessary for complex trade, manufacturing, and eventually, the Industrial Revolution. You can't have a factory shift system without a shared, authoritative notion of when shift starts. The machine required the metric. This brings us to the second, more profound revolution, taking that shared time and making it personal. For centuries, time was a communal experience, broadcast from a tower. But what if you needed to know the time when you couldn't hear the bell? The quest for portable, precise timekeeping became one of the great scientific and entrepreneurial races of history, driven by a very specific and dangerous problem: navigation at sea. Without knowing your exact longitude, ships were literally lost, costing fortunes and lives. The solution, as it turned out, was a clock. A clock so precise it could keep the time of your home port while you were tossed on a heaving ocean, comparing it to local sun time to calculate your position. This was John Harrison's marine chronometer in the 18th century, a masterpiece of craftsmanship. But to make such precision portable, we had to miniaturize the technology. We moved from pendulums to balance wheels, from weights to coiled springs. And as these mechanisms became smaller, more reliable, and eventually cheaper to produce, they migrated from ship captains' quarters to the pockets of businessmen, and then to the wrists of soldiers in the trenches of World War I. The wristwatch. Now, time wasn't just public, it was intimate, personal, a heartbeat on your wrist. You carried the regulator with you, internalizing its rhythm. Your life was now a schedule you wore. Which leads me to the deepest layer of all, how this tool began to reshape our very perception of reality. Once we had mastered measuring time with incredible accuracy, we started to see the universe itself as a kind of clock. Isaac Newton's laws portrayed a cosmos of perfect, predictable mechanics, a divine clockwork set in motion by God. The success of the clock as a machine became a metaphor for all of nature. But the story doesn't end there. Our obsession with precision kept pushing further. In the 20th century, we moved from mechanical oscillations to atomic ones, defining a second not as a fraction of a day, but as 9,192,631,770 oscillations of a cesium atom. This is the time that now synchronizes our world. GPS satellites, financial markets, the internet, this very podcast streaming to your device. We live in a network of invisible, perfect time. But here's the personal reflection, the thing that really sits with me. In this process of mastering time, I wonder if we've also become enslaved by it. That anxiety I mentioned at the beginning, that blinking cursor panic, it's the direct descendant of the monastery bell and the factory whistle. We have sliced our existence into thinner and thinner slivers, optimizing every minute, feeling guilty for unproductive moments. We invented the clock to serve us, but somewhere along the line, we agreed to serve it. So what's the takeaway from this deep dive? It's not that clocks are bad. They are the bedrock of our modern world, the silent coordinators of every miracle of civilization we enjoy. The insight is to remember that the time on your phone, the schedule in your calendar, is a story we all agreed to tell. It's a powerful, useful fiction. And like any story, we have the power to edit it. To sometimes look up from the watch and reconnect with older rhythms, the sun on your face, the completion of a meaningful task instead of the end of an hour, a deep breath that isn't counted. We invented the future by measuring time, but we invent a life by how we choose to fill it. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this exploration of ideas resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share the Curiosity Compendium with a curious friend. For more episodes that connect the dots of history, science, and human ingenuity, make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. This is Ibnul J. Farabi from Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious.